Hey everyone, this is your wealth architect, Jeffrey Taylor, and I'm getting into a very important and passionate conversation about creating infinite cash flow without tenants. As I've shared before, oftentimes when I'm talking with a real estate investor or property owner, it is most of the time after they're in a crisis. Sometimes there's some proactive planning, some proactive conversation, but a lot of times it's after they fall into trouble. And the biggest trouble that the real estate investor has, believe it or not, it is tenant related. It's when the tenant doesn't pay or when their relationship with the tenant goes bad and it creates a domino effect of financial problems. And so, what I want to talk about is one of the most important solutions that you can use to protect yourself against that. So, when there is a financial loss, you're financially ready for it in a way where you can keep your properties moving forward. So I want to talk about this ideology of generating continuous worry-free cash flow without relying on a tenant, without relying upon or being concerned about property management headaches or market fluctuations, right? This is going to take a few minutes, and I'm going to show you exactly how policy loan recycling. This may be something that you're not familiar with. We're going to get into policy loan recycling and how it can unlock a perpetual stream of cash flow. So you never have to worry about vacancies or late rent again. One of the things that I talk about when I'm meeting with investors or doing an investors meeting is addressing the issue of protecting yourself from when things go wrong with the tenant. For some reason, investors don't want to think about this and they don't want to plan for it, but I don't want to see you fall into that situation. So again, as a real estate investor or a previous investor myself, hey, I felt the pain as well. When you have vacant units draining your bank accounts, you have problem tenants eating into your profits, and then we have things like property taxes and maintenance bills stacking up. Traditionally, rental income can be unpredictable. That's just a reality. And one vacancy can wipe out months of gains. This is why so many investors feel trapped. Oh, goodness, I'm thinking about a scenario right now. And when you're tied to tenants, one of the things that I want to do is over time, make you less and less dependent upon tenants. And this is a very, very powerful strategy because it can not only help you to increase your cash flow, but it can teach you how to double your cash flow while becoming less and less dependent upon the tenant. So policy loan recycling is a strategy, right? Where it uses cash value component of an index universal life policy. Now, that's my preferred policy, and there's some reasons why, and it has been for the past 20 plus years. So some people like to use whole life. I don't want to get into all of that, but regardless of your choice and what you want to do, is the whole idea is to use life insurance as, of course, we've got death benefit, we've got living benefits, but we want to use it to solve current financial problems. And when a policy is designed correctly, it can become a income engine for you or cash flow engine for you. So instead of paying down debt or waiting for rent checks, you can funnel some of your money into an index universal life for the purpose of creating tax deferred growth and then borrow against your policy, creating an endless loop of capital you can control. And you're already doing that already with the credit card. You have a loop system that you're using with a credit card or some line of credit. The problem is that all the profits are going to the bank. When you use this system as an alternative to that, you have not only profits coming back to you, but you will have more control on your own money. And that's what I want to see you have, is more control over your money. So let's talk about the steps. How do you structure this and put this together? Well, the number one thing you want to do is make sure that you have an expert or a subject matter expert who understands negative wealth transfer. Because negative wealth transfer is going to evaluate the gaps in your current financials, where you're losing money, where you're forfeiting money. This is very, very important because when those negative wealth transfers are reversed, you can use that as your budget to fund your policy. And in many cases, when this strategy is implemented, we're using money you already have, just restructuring it for the purpose of utilizing life insurance as a tool to protect you from the problems associated with real estate investing. So That would be the first step. You want to find the budget. The second piece, you want to understand what specifically are the risk factors in your real estate profile. Everyone's different. Obviously, you have some common ground or common problems, but we want to look at specifically what are your risk factors in relationship to the way that your real estate profile is set up. The next thing we want to look at is, okay, actually setting up the policy, right? That's going to be determined by your case design. Again, we're trying to answer a question, and there's some other questions related to that question, but you want to create a case design that's problem solving, not just putting money into a policy because it's a good idea, okay? And remember, when you start a policy, you're going to have internal costs. Just like when you buy a property, you have costs associated with that purchase. Same thing with life insurance. Now, there's some nuances that are relate to internal costs with life insurance. It's different than real estate, but keep in mind you're going to have those internal costs. Now, if you're working with an expert, subject matter expert, they're going to understand that and be able to communicate that with you, because when you do your case design, they're going to account for your internal costs so that your design will still be able to problem solve without your costs hurting or working against you. Okay. So then you're gonna have your budget. You're gonna get your policy started. So you're putting money into the plan. You've accounted for your expenses, and then you're gonna let it grow. How long you let it grow is going to be dependent upon your specific situation. The whole idea is to create what? A cash flow, an alternative cash flow system where you're protected for either reinvestment, or you're also positioning yourself to be able to use your own banking system, if you will, to fund your other projects where you don't have to go to someone else for funding. And again, you can keep that interest profit for yourself. So depending upon what you're trying to do there, you want to keep that in mind. So over time, that cash is going to accumulate and it's going to grow tax deferred. And again, the great thing about it is that there's no market losses. You're going to have to worry about losing money. I had a person tell me that they were so thankful that their accounts recovered in the marketplace, but she was talking about how volatile things are. That's not a conversation that you're going to have to really worry about when you're dealing with what we're talking about here. Okay, so the next piece is to get the policy strong enough so that you can borrow against it. Now, the whole idea of borrowing against it, which is a series of strategies within itself, is to be able to use the money to problem solve today or to create opportunities for yourself, or both, while at the same time you want to have a budget to pay yourself back. Now, this can get into an extended conversation where we could get into different strategies, and we don't have time for that. So the primary thing I would tell you is always have a plan to pay your interest. Because what you don't want is that you don't want your interest accumulating over time, even though the policy is going to create interest itself. You don't want that interest eroding into your cash reserve any more than what you have to. So you always want to have a plan to pay the interest. You definitely want to pay yourself back, because the whole part about recycling is to be able to do what? Use the money all over again. So as your policy cash value recovers interest, you pay the loan, and then you can borrow that money again. And this creates a continuous loop. And that's what we're going after. Just like we use our credit cards and lines of credits as a continuous loop, you want to use your policy in a responsible way as a continuous loop, right? It's just that simple. You're going to fund your policy. You want to grow it. You want to borrow against it. You want to replenish it. You want to repeat it, right? Okay. So I'm thinking about a particular client here who borrowed $12,000 a year from her policy, right? And meanwhile, her policy was continuing to grow. As she was working on her project, she saw that the loan balance was growing, but she knew that was going to happen. So as she starts to pay her loan back, she saw that loan balance going down, which was the whole point that I was trying to make to her. The beauty of it is that over time, as her balance began to go down, she could also see the accumulation part of her policy increasing. And she was really excited about that, because she was using money to solve some other problems in her real estate profile. But she could also see that she was creating a whole separate profit center for herself with the way that her policy was working. And again, This had nothing to do with the tenants. It had nothing to do with property management, and it had nothing to do with market risk, right? And so she was really excited about that. Okay, so let's talk about some potential benefits of doing this. Again, you want to make sure that you're talking with a subject matter expert, someone who has a proven track record with case design, right? Okay, so first of all, one of the benefits is that you're going to have predictable cash flow. When you're looking at your policy, you can control your flow of cash depending upon what your options are, right? Secondly, you have tax advantages. Again, those tax advantages are based on specific rules. If you have any questions about those rules, you can, of course, look that up. Third, there's downside protection. In other words, I don't have to be concerned when the market corrects itself, whether or not my account is half of what it was the day before. I don't have to worry about that. Balance sheet strength. Now, this is I could probably talk about 10 different components when we look at the whole idea of balance sheet strength, because a policy can be used to help you acquire more loans from the bank and get you more favorable from the bank when you have multiple policies or when you're using your balance sheet strength. One of the things that I want to do is I want to show the bank how I'm using my policy to improve my cash flow. They like to see that. And there are certain banks who emphasize cash flow that may give you preferential treatment for getting additional loans in reference to your real estate investing. But your cash flow or your cash value remains an asset, and that boosts your borrowing power within itself. Okay. Then, of course, you have flexibility. I can use the money for any reason. I can use it for my expenses. I can have, for example, have clients that may have a policy loan for their vehicle, a policy loan on a rehab project that they're working on, a policy loan funding their children's college education. And all of that is being used to build the wealth of the investor. The beauty is that the investor is reaping the reward of recycling their own money. They're getting the profits rather than the bank. Very, very powerful stuff. So let's talk about some of the concerns that you may have. You don't know insurance. You don't have to. If you, just like anything else, you want to make sure you have a subject matter expert. I cannot overemphasize that. Okay. Are policy expensive? Absolutely, policies are expensive. Isn't real estate expensive? But that expense should not preclude you from creating a case design where you're doing problem solving. The whole idea is to make sure that your case design solves the expense of the problem that you have, so that your internal costs, despite having internal costs, the policy is actually helping you solve a problem. That's very, very important. And when it is done correctly, it can be a very, very beautiful, beautiful thing. What about liquidity? Remember, you control liquidity. Liquidity is controlled by a couple of different factors. One of the biggest factor is going to be how much money you're putting into your policy, and how frequently you're putting money into your policy. Again, you control liquidity. Now, there's some limitations on that, of course, yeah, but the point is that you control liquidity. Again, that relates to case design and making sure that your case design is done correctly. Okay, so here's a couple of tips that you may want to consider. Number one, you want to choose a top-rated carrier. That is, without question, something that you do not want to compromise concerning that. Number two is you want to have clear funding goals. Now, your subject matter expert / insurance agent should be able to help you with that, especially when they understand problem solving and how to use life insurance to solve current and future financial problems. Number three, you want to map out your loan schedule. This is really, really important, because when your loan schedule is done correctly, I teach my investors how to create the 5 miracles of money, or 5 separate profit centers through policy loan recycling. And so you want to make sure that you have an understanding of that so that you can maximize your opportunities. You want to monitor your policy's performance. Well, part of that is checking your allocation every so many months, or maybe once a year, or whatever is going to be most suitable for your situation. And then, of course, I cannot overemphasize this. You want to work with someone who specializes in policy design and maximizes your cash flow and minimizes your fees, and make sure that you have the appropriate protections in place. Okay. So I talked about leveraging multiple policies. That's a really key part. For example, you may have an investor who has a policy that policy, in the event they pass away, even though they may be using the cash value of it, is for their grandchildren. The death benefit is for their grandchildren. So they've got a policy just for their grandchildren. Or they have another policy. Again, they're using the cash value in it, but the death benefit and living benefit is for their real estate investor partners. So again, when we look at leveraging multiple policies, it just depends on the problems that we're trying to solve. We're trying to incorporate the use of the policy so that we're getting the maximum benefit. The other thing too is that you want to integrate some type of AI cash flow management tool. I love doing this because what it does when we put together the recycling or paying back of the loan, we want to use some type of technology that shows us the most efficient way to pay that loan back. That creates other opportunities. It creates other brainstormings and other problem solving opportunities. You always want to automate your repayments, right? Set it up on some type of system where it automatically pays itself back so you don't have to think about it. And then you want to scale to your goals. You want to be thinking, okay, this is where I am now, but the next year, 3 years, 5 years, this is where I want to be. And so you want to set up your recycling system to be able to expand and adjust as you continue to grow. You want to make sure that you are growing your money, even in a situation scenario where your real estate profile may be, your properties may be depreciating in value. You may have some tenants who are not paying, and it can happen at the same time. But if your policies are structured correctly, maybe that's the tool that's actually growing and providing additional cash reserves so that can offset anything that's happening on the other side. Again, scale to your goals. You want to make sure that you do that. So hopefully I've said something that makes sense. If you can just take a moment to like and to subscribe to my channel. If I'm saying some things that you like, you can ask a question. But listen, if you want to talk about policy loan recycling, that can be a very, very, very powerful strategy when it is done correctly. And I would love to extend my expertise to you, and we can do a 15-minute private session. So if you want to do that, we can do that. You can see the link if you want a private session with me, and we'll get your questions answered about what a policy loan recycling can look like for you. And we can also talk about a couple of different strategies and do this because, again, what we want to do is we want to use life insurance for its intent, which is to solve current and future cash flow and asset protection needs. Well, when we do that and we know how to filter that through the 5 miracles of money, we can literally create 5 different tiers of profit while we are recycling our dollars. And that's what we want to do. The same profits that we're creating for the credit card companies is the same profits we need to be creating for ourselves. So if that's an interest to you, you want a 15-minute chat on that, certainly take a moment to register, and I look forward to seeing you then. Hey, thanks for taking this time to hang out with me. Again, I hope that said something and made some sense here. And like any other decision you make, listen, please do not consider this as advice. If you try to do that, you're going to hurt yourself one way, form, or another, and I'm not responsible for that. So make sure that that you see this for what it is, which is entertainment only. Thank you. Make sure that you register for my next class. I look forward to seeing you soon.